Hi everyone, welcome back in a new video. We're going to be creating this swipe effect. So we're going to make this items or those items swipeable like this to increase the user experience. So if you want to learn how to do this, stick with me till the end of this video. Welcome back. This is our initial setup. As you can see in our Visual Studio Code, I already created the component. I called it the swipe item, and this is its CSS file. And as you can see, I added some properties here, nothing complex. And also make sure to call it here in the app.js, the root file of your project. And this is our swap item component. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to explain what is this. This is just simple HTML inside the function. We are returning it so we can be able to render this. And here, as you can see, we have the root class, which is the swipe item root container class name. You can call it whatever you want. And here we have the width and the height properties. And also I created the item class name. Here it is. And this is its properties or CSS properties. So this is our initial setup, nothing fancy here. So what we are going to do is we are first add some divs inside this root div, and we are going to call them the left side and the right side since we are going to swipe this item. So we want to make sure that we have here an element with its color and also another element in at this position in another color. And also we are going to add some icon. So here I added those elements as you can see. So I added the left side and the right side elements here, and inside each of them I added the icon. And here as you can see I used the font awesome icon library, and those are the icons. So in order to be able to use this, first you need to go to their website, and this is their website, and hit start element here and just go through all the steps there so you can be able to install it first before you use it via your terminal. And those are the icons that I'm using. And I'm using the check and the trash icon, meaning the logic that I want to create is when it is swiped to the right, we're gonna set the item as checked, and where when it is swiped from the right to the left, the element is gonna be deleted. So that's our logic. And also, as you can see here, I added this prompt, the item name. So this time I'm just using one prompt, and throughout the project, I'm gonna add other prompts. And this is how the component is used with the item name I called it item, and here it is. And here I'm going to move on to the CSS file to explain how I did to create those elements. So right now everything looks fine, and in order to show you how I created the left side and the right side, so the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm gonna make this item hidden to show what's behind the scene. And here, as you can see, here are our icons and our boxes. So the left side, this is our part, and the right side, this is its part. So the first thing that I had to do, I had to make it absolute in its position and make sure to put the swipe item root container, which is the root element, as relative to stay within it. So of course I had to put the top and the left as 0 pixel. The width is 50% to take the half of the width of the root container element. Of course the height is going to be 100% to take the horizontal width. The background is going to be green. And make sure to customize this depending on your needs. You can change the color, you can change the icon, you can do a lot of things here. I also make sure to put the z-index -1 to make the left side div or the right side div underneath the item. And of course, the border radius is going to be 15 pixel. And also I had to make the display flex and the align items as centered to be able to center it horizontally. And here in the left icon, this is its styling. So the font size 30 pixel, the color is going to be white, of course, the position absolute to position it freely within this container, the left side container, and to push it a little bit to the right or to the left, from the left to the right, I did 30 pixel. So the same thing is for the right side. And this is pretty much our initial logic here. And the next step that we are going to do, we're going to make this kind of alive. So we're going to work on the logic, how to be able to swipe this item element. And one thing, last thing that I want to show you, I want to show you how it's going to work. So let's make this visible again. And I did this to show you how we are going to create our logic. Let me save the file. So for example, if I want to swipe to the right side, I'm gonna change this to 40 pixel. As you can see, this is how it's gonna look when we are going to swipe. And the same thing we are gonna do from the right to the left. So let's put this back. And here we are, our initial logic is pretty much set up. So right now I'm gonna work on the logic and then I'm gonna explain how I did it. So here, as you can see, I added a bit of code, and this is our blueprint or our logic that we are going to use to create this swiping effect. And as you can see, we have some functions, and those functions are linked to the event listeners. So there are three event listeners that we are going to use. We are going to use the on mouse down when we click on the mouse, on mouse move when we are move the mouse from left to right or right to left. And here we are going to do our calculation, and the on mouse up when we are going to stop clicking on the mouse. And here we have two variables. We are going to use just two. We are going to use the start x where we are going to calculate where the position when we are clicking first. And then the second variable is the translate x, which refers to the translate x function that exists here. So this is not going to be used because we are going to use it directly inside React. As you can see, here is the transform property of the styling of the item element. And we are using the percentage, not the pixel. So we can make the translate x adaptable to the width. So when we widen the width, so it's gonna adapt to the width, because when you are doing it with the pixel, it's gonna be always fixed. So that's the advantage of using the percentage here. And also one element that I added inside the div, so I added this class name, item name, to make sure that, so I'm gonna go back to my browser to show you why I did this, because first I was adding the padding here in the item, which moves the element or the item a little bit to the right. And this is something that I don't want. So that's why I created a separate element that I called it item name for the name to avoid having this problem. So when I use the translate X, I'm not gonna have any issue. So that's pretty much the thing that I added, and that's what we are going to rely on mainly to build our swiping effect logic. And also to show you how it's going to work, like for example, because I used the translate X variable here inside the style element of the item div, here is our variable, and make sure you are using the backticks here to make it work. And let's, for example, add make this 40%. And here, as you can see, it's going to move to the right. And if I make it minus, it's gonna move to the left. So that's pretty much our idea. So I'm gonna work on this to make it automatically. So for example, I'm gonna make this 0 again. And for example, when I click here, the on mouse down, it's going to get triggered, and we are going to use the start X. And when I'm moving this to the right, the on mouse move event listener, it's going to be triggered. And when I stop clicking, the handle mouse up function, it's going to get triggered. And we are going to use a callback function on left and on right function to customize the event listener that you want when it is swiped to the left or it is swiped to the right. So here our full logic of how to create in the swipeable effect of our item. Before I jump in the code, I want to show you our results. And as you can see, this is our swipe is working pretty much fine. And as you can see here, we have this smooth effect. When we stop clicking on the item, it goes back to its initial position. And also you notice that it is restricted to a certain position. So I'm going to show you everything here that helped us to create this cool swipeable effect. So let's jump into our code, and I'm going to start first with those two elements that I added. I added the with root variable state, and I added this constant item ref. This is going to be used to get access to the DOM element of this div, which is the item root container, because we are going to get the width. And here our function that's going to be triggered once when the component is loaded. So the reason why we are going to get the width, because we are going to use the percentage measure here. And the reason why I'm doing this, because I don't want to use the pixel because it's going to be fixed and I need to hard code things when I change, for example, the width of the root element. So that's why I'm using the percentage. But in order to use the percentage, I need to get the width of the root element. So that's what we are doing here. So we are using the get bounding client rect function, as you can see, and we are getting the width from this variable, and we are setting it to the width root. So that's our first step. So the second step here, what we are doing, we are setting this e.clientX when we click first on the item. So we are using the e object. It refers to the position of the clicked element, and we are setting it to the start X. And here in our handle on mouse move function that calculates the move of the mouse, whether left or right, and we are going to start all of this only if the start X is different than null, meaning only if when we click here. So when it does, we are going to get the e.clientX element, and we are setting it to the current X, and we are using this calculation, this formula, to get the difference between the current position and the initial position. And also here, what we are doing, we are just converting this into percentage, and we are dividing it by the width root of the root element. So that's why we are using this function. And we are setting it to the translate x, because that's the variable that we are going to use to calculate the swipe via the transform property here. And finally, we are using this formula. We are using the math object min and max functions to limit the swipe, because if we don't do so, we are going to swipe it infinitely, whether from left or right. And we are setting it again to the translate x variable. And finally, this function, when we stop clicking on the item, we are setting things back to their initial state. And also finally, I added this transition property to have this smooth transition when I stop clicking when it goes back to its initial position. So that's pretty much our logic here. It's completely simple. So right now, what we are going to work on, we are going to work on the callback function, like meaning if we hit a certain threshold, it's going to trigger a function, whether from left or right. So let's start working on that. So here I added the callback functions, the on right and on left. Don't worry, I'm going to explain that. And as you can see, in order to make this swipe functionable, I'm using the handle mouse up because that's the end point of the swipe function. And I'm going to explain what that means. We are checking a condition, which is the translate x need to be upper or equal than 25%. And the on right, which is this argument, which is the callback function, if it is used, then we can trigger this on right function. And the same thing if the swipe is done to the left side. So I'm gonna explain what is this on right and the on left functions. Those are just callback functions. So for those of you who don't know what is a callback function, it is a function that is triggered when an event happens. So that's for our case. Because this event happens on the on mouse up event, we are triggering this so we can use those functions outside of the component to do the things that we want. So I'm heading over our up.js to explain more about how we use those on left and on right functions. So we are linking them to the handle left swiped, which is this function, and the same for the on right callback function is linked to handle right swiped function. So when the sorry, so when I swipe to the left, as you can see, we have this message right swiped, which is this message. And the same, it's going to happen if I do it to the left side. We have the left swapped. So actually in real case scenario, you don't want to use logs. We're just doing them to test the application or the functions are working or not. But in real world, like for example, the swiped function is used mainly in to-do lists. That's what I'm seeing in apps. So for example, we are using the check icon here. Like for example, when I do this, you want to write a function that's going to handle uh, whether the tasks are done or not, and that's going to re-render the app and doing all the things that we want. The same for if we do this, it's going to be deleted from the area where the lists reside. So that is pretty much how it works, and I hope that you understood what I'm creating so far. So right now, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use this swipe item inside the map function where I'm going to create a list of items. It's like I'm creating a simple to-do list where I'm gonna test this swipe item function. So as you can see here, here is our final product. And to show you that everything is working fine, like for example, if I swipe this, it's going to be independent by itself. So it's not going to be intertwined with other elements. And the same if I do for the item 3 and the item 2. So everything is working pretty much fine. So I'm going to show you what I did. First, I created a list of items, and then I created the to-do list item variable state, and I passed in it the list. So next, I used the map function that's going to go through each element of the lists or to-do lists item, and we are using this our swipe item custom function to be able to render this. First, the problem that I faced, which is very minor, those items, there wasn't a gap between the items. Make sure to add the margin here, 20 pixel, depending on your needs. So to create this little gap between those items. Otherwise, they're gonna be stacked up with each other. So it's not the thing that we want. So let's go back to our app.js here to show you more stuff, how I made this to happen. So here we are just using normal props here. The only thing that I added is the key prop, which is very, very important in rendering. That's going to help a lot React when something happens or a change happens in the list or in the UI. So it's not going to get any unexpected behavior. So what I did, I added the key prop first and I put here inside the swipe item root container. So each key that's gonna pass in the key prop, it's gonna go there. It's gonna go here. And the only thing, also the last thing that I changed is this. Instead of using directly the handle left swiped function, I used the arrow function because it is very, very fundamental. This it's gonna only happen when the on left or the on right function is triggered. Unlike if you use it directly, it's gonna render immediately when the swipe item gets triggered. So that's something that we don't want. We want to be triggered only when the event listener is occurring. So that's our basic example. And I'm going to show you how it is working so far. So I'm going to open up the log console to show you what is happening behind the scene. And like, for example, if I swipe the item to the left, we're having item swipe to the right or to the right, sorry, that's our item. If I do this for the item 3, we have item swiped to the left is the item 3. So everything is working. And of course, just for the sake of this example, you don't want to use the logs. You want to use a function like, for example, that's going to delete or that's going to update the items when they are checked inside those functions. So here you have it. That's our project. It's very simple to create. Just by following the steps, you can be able to create this custom swipe item component and you can use it in different projects. So if you like this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification. And also, I would be happy if you leave a comment in down the section below. That's gonna help my YouTube channel to reach more people. So that's for this video. And also one thing that I forgot is if you wanna access to the code, head down to the description below. You will find the link, click and go to the website where you will find the complete code of this project. And you can go along with the video to understand the concepts that you may not know.